Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. One of the biggest storylines, not only for this South Carolina program, but really the college football landscape heading into 2025 is what kind of quarterback play we get from LaNorris Sellers in the 2025 season. It became very apparent in the back half of 2024 that the ceiling for LaNorris Sellers at the quarterback position just about as high as any other quarterback that you're going to see in the country, if not the highest in the country heading into 2025. Now the conversation is not only, hey, LaNorris Sellers, can we take some steps going into 2025? Because we all know there are certain things that he can certainly clean up heading into 2025. I think the bigger storyline is, hey, can South Carolina build an offense around LaNorris Sellers that leans into the special traits that this kid has at the quarterback position and create an offense that can maximize LaNorris Sellers as a football player? And this was one of the biggest conversations that we had pretty much all throughout the transfer portal is, hey, is South Carolina going to go out and add another wide receiver? Now, I think one of the fascinating storylines here is it became very clear that South Carolina, I think, is very comfortable with some of the young talent in that wide receiver, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. One of the other bigger storylines here, and this kind of goes into, hey, does LaNorris Sellers have the tools? Does he have the stuff around him to be really good in 2025? It's not only about the pass catchers. It's about the offensive line. It's about the run game that you're going to give LaNorris Sellers as well. And one of the biggest storylines that I thought was present for South Carolina in the back half of 2024 is, yes, LaNorris Sellers, in the way he played, it got most of the national media attention, and rightfully so. I mean, some of the plays that we saw from LaNorris Sellers in 2024, there's just no quarterback across the country that can do what he does. I think another part of LaNorris Sellers playing that caliber of football in November of the 2024 year had to deal with a lot of other players on this offense starting to really turn the corner as well. Right, Rocket Sanders started running the football like we all knew he could. Josiah Thompson at left tackle went from kind of a liability the first half of the season to a damn good left tackle in the back half of 2024. You look at Nick Harbor, guy that certainly seemed to be turning the corner going into the 2025 year. Yes, LaNorris Sellers was very, very good in the month of November. The rest of this offense for South Carolina was also playing at a very high level. And then you make some additions. Now, I want to get into what this offense looks like around LaNorris Sellers. Are there any other positions that we could see South Carolina addressing or what we're looking for going into spring practice as well? And I think it starts with, hey, you got to look at LaNorris Sellers and you got to look at what kind of quarterback he is and start to build this offense around the skill set LaNorris Sellers brings. Want to get into a few storylines before we do, and as always, to the South Carolina fans, it's been really fun, talking this team in 2024, talking them in the portal, talking them on the recruiting trail. The amount of support many of y'all shown the boys over the last couple of weeks and months has been amazing. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Would love to hear how the South Carolina fans are feeling about the pieces of this offense as well in the comments section. I know there's a lot of different takes you could probably have around the offense, around LaNorris Sellers. Let it fly in the comments section. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I got four storylines that I think are probably worth noting when you're talking about, is there enough around LaNorris Sellers? Number one, keeping him clean. This was a massive problem to start the year for South Carolina in 2024. On the season, LaNorris Sellers was only kept clean on 57% of his dropbacks. Now, some of that's on LaNorris Sellers, holding the football, trying to do too much at times, which is all to be expected from a redshirt freshman quarterback that knows he has elite ability to make plays as an athlete. I think, secondly, the offensive line just to start the year wasn't very good, right? Josiah Thompson struggled in a big way the first 6-7 games. Case and Henry on the other side struggled in a big way as well. When this offensive line got better, LaNorris Sellers got better too. And you start looking at the numbers in terms of when LaNorris Sellers was kept clean, which again was only 57% of the time, which is an extremely low number to keep your quarterback clean. He was 71% completion percentage, 14 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. You want to maximize LaNorris Sellers. And you talk about maximizing LaNorris Sellers, what does it look like? It looks like him making some big time throws, but also turning the football over less. If you want LaNorris Sellers to clean up the turnovers, I think it first starts with this offensive line doing a better job keeping him clean in the pocket. If you can do that and you get the 71% completion percentage, 14 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions, that's a good way to start in terms of talking about what's around LaNorris Sellers. And you start looking at the offensive line that I've been very vocal. I think this offensive line could be very, very good in 2025. You have so much young talent that, excuse me, is seemingly getting better, right? Josiah Thompson, the last couple of games we saw from Josiah Thompson in his true freshman year, really, really good. We feel good about some of the veteran pieces that they put on the inside of the offensive line. We feel really good about what Tree's going to look like in year 3. We feel really good about what Trevon Baugh is going to look like in year 3. It's a deep offensive line with a lot of talent. Now the goal in spring practice and fall camp is, hey, what is our best 5? Is our best 5 potentially having Tree playing at guard? I personally think it is. Like, you talk about ceiling of South Carolina, you talk about what the best version of this offensive line can be. To me, it's with Josiah Thompson and Tree Babalade on the football field at the same time. Can South Carolina get creative? And I also think Tree just might be a better guard than tackle. I think that's worth noting in this conversation too. Can you get the best offensive line to keep LaNorris Sellers clean? Now, I think the second thing is the run game. One, because this South Carolina offense, they want to run the football. Anytime you have a quarterback like LaNorris Sellers in the backfield, you want to be able to run the football because you can run it in a lot of different ways, including using LaNorris Sellers. They run the football 59% of the time, which was top 20 in the country. So it's very clear South Carolina wants to run the football going into 2025. The other storyline here is you give LaNorris Sellers a run game and you allow him to work play action more. LaNorris Sellers was elite working play action in 2024. And he had a 71% completion percentage, 10 touchdowns to 0 interceptions going off play action. So you start, when we have the conversation of, hey, is there enough around LaNorris Sellers? The first conversation always goes to pass catchers, which we're going to get to right now. But the first thing I would look at for LaNorris Sellers is, hey, if you can keep him clean, you can give him a run game, you're going to get the best version of LaNorris Sellers. Can South Carolina do that in 2025? That's probably the first 2 things you're looking at. I expect the offensive line to be better. Rashul Faison coming in the portal, difference maker at the running back spot. There's a very good chance the pass protection and the run game get better going into 2025, which is only going to help LaNorris Sellers as a quarterback. Now, number 3, and this kind of gets into, all right, what kind of quarterback do we have with LaNorris Sellers? How can we maximize this kid? Deep ball. A 48% completion percentage on throws 20-plus yards down the field. There's not many quarterbacks that throw the deep ball better than LaNorris Sellers. You know, they like to work those big-time posts. They like to work the deep overs. They run some flies with Nick Harbor. Do you have the wide receivers that can work vertically down the field, that can be that deeper third threat? And obviously, it doesn't really get much better than Nick Harbor, who's the fastest player in all of college football. That's where it starts. And what I like about Nick Harbor is he's becoming more than just a linear vertical wide receiver, right? When Nick Harbor just got to South Carolina, it was raw. This is a really big body that runs really, really fast. Probably not the most polished route runner. And so we know what he can do working vertically in a straight line down the field. There's just not many defensive backs that have his size and his speed. There's no defensive backs that have his size speed combination. Now, you look at some of these other deep threats. I think you go to Malik Clark next. I mean, you talk about speed. Malik Clark coming in, he's 6'3", 200 pounds. He runs a 10.5. I mean, Nick Harbor's the fastest player in all of college football. Malik Clark very well might be in the top 50. Many 10.5s on the football field. You can tell South Carolina is trying, and I would throw in Donovan Murphy, and I'd probably throw in Vandravius Jacobs as well. What I love most, and this could probably be a reason why South Carolina was less aggressive than we expected in the portal for wide receivers. Hey, one of the things we want from our wide receivers are big bodies that can work vertically down the field. Nick Harbor, Don Murph, Malik Clark, potentially Vandravius Jacobs, they all bring that to South Carolina. I think you've made a wide receiver room that you might not look at and say that's a top 10 wide receiver room in the country, but I would say, hey, it fits what South Carolina wants to do, right? They want to run the football, go play action, push the ball down the field. You got wide receivers to do that. Number 4, and this might be the biggest storyline, in my opinion, for LaNorris Sellers in South Carolina going into 2025. And I decided to use the term safety blankets. And what I mean by that is, hey, who are the guys that can work underneath that can give LaNorris Sellers just some easy access throws. And if there's one thing you go back to the film and say LaNorris Sellers probably needs to work on a little bit more, it's taking what's there. And again, that's a line that when you have the talent that LaNorris Sellers has, you're trying to walk. Like, hey, I want to be a difference maker. I want to push the ball down the field. I want to make big time throws. I want to extend plays. We want him to do that. But can he also blend it with playing on time and taking what's there and being methodical down the football field? Because you look at South Carolina kind of relying on the explosives, the big plays. If we can find a little bit more efficiency and consistency in this offense, that's where maybe this South Carolina offense goes to the next level. Joshua Simon was that guy last year, right? He led the team in targets, receiving yards, touchdowns, first down catches. When South Carolina was working underneath, it was primarily going to a guy like Joshua Simon. Who can be that kind of wide receiver for South Carolina? I think you got two of them. One, Michael Smith at the tight end spot. There was a ton of buzz around Michael Smith going into the 2024 year as a true freshman. Now, I think partially it's really hard to play a lot at the tight end spot as a true freshman just because of all the responsibilities you have. And I think secondly, look, Joshua Simon was so good, it's kind of hard to take that kid off the football field. I think Mike Smith could certainly be that answer. The other one I look at is Mazio Bennett, who I thought was extremely impressive as a true freshman, sitting it down in zone coverage, creating separation early in his route trees. The emergence of both Mazio Bennett and Michael Smith might be some of the biggest storylines for the South Carolina offense. We know we have the big bodies that run really fast that can be the deep threat for South Carolina. Can you get LaNorris Sellers to be a little bit more efficient and take what's there a little bit more? The emergence of Mazio Bennett and Mike Smith probably going to be a big storyline in that. You look at it and say, and I truly do think we get a little wrapped up in the pass catcher conversation. One, you look at the pass catchers and say, they might have their guys. Like, I know they love Donovan Murph. I've heard a lot of good things about Brian Rowe. I know they like Mike Smith. I know they like Mazio Bennett. And obviously, Nick Harbor's a guy that we think could be that wide receiver one. I look at the pass catchers and say, one, I like them. And two, Shane Beamer told us that, hey, we're not getting into bidding wars with wide receivers. That tells me that they feel pretty good about those wide receivers in that room. I think the pass catchers are a check. My biggest storyline is, hey, can this offensive line be a little bit more consistent, not only in pass protection, but getting that run game going? If you can keep LaNorris Sellers clean more and give him a better, the run game was good last year, especially towards the tail end. If we can pick up where we left off in terms of keeping him clean, running the football, and get better at it in 2025, that's where the conversation comes in for me. If you can get these four things going for LaNorris Sellers in 2025, you're going to see this kid take a step. And LaNorris Sellers taking a step in 2025, that's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. You look at the college football landscape, look, there ain't that many good quarterbacks. South Carolina might have one of the best in the country. That can be the difference between, a 9-10 win season and an 11+ win season being dangerous in the playoffs. Can you maximize LaNorris Sellers? That's probably where it starts. That's my take on it. We'll have this conversation plenty over the next couple of weeks and months as we get into spring practice, going to fall camp. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.